All right, brother, what's going on?
Not much, just had a wonderful 4th of July. It turns out that if you go and pick up your fireworks the day after the 4th of July, you get a hefty discount. So, pro tip, if you can swing it, beat the masses, go afterwards, and then have your own little fireworks show when you want to.
And you've got all your fingers and toes.
Still, yep, still 10 and counting, whether I need them or not.
Was it you sent me that video and all I could think was, is it dry where you are or was it
Not
a
at all.
decent? Oh, good. Okay, cool.
Tennessee,
Cool.
baby, it is always humid, and somebody was telling me actually that we get more annual rainfall than Seattle.
Oh,
It just
wow.
happens in more concentrated bursts. So
Interesting.
when it rains, it pours.
It
We
comes
just have
down,
less
huh?
less rainy days overall, but more total rain. Yeah.
Let's continue to make other people happy with the shout out. Where's that CrossFit shirt from?
This is from Isaac Bullerton's gym in California. Bull has been a longtime member of our medical staff at the games, and so shout out to Bull and his crew, man.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And final question, did you get fit today? Will you get fit today? And if not, what's the last workout that you did?
I have not gotten fit today. I have a plan for getting fit though. It's actually kind of a very Pat Sherwood style workout. So 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Down and
Okay.
up.
Okay.
Front squats, 135. Nothing too crazy. Strict pull-ups.
Yeah, buddy.
And bar dips. So that's going to be that's
That's
on the
cool.
menu.
That's a
Yeah.
nice one. Yeah, it's funny.
Should be fun.
I've got a descending rep scheme to I think your favorite rep scheme, 10 down to 1.
Oh yeah, it was close to being that, but I wanted the progression to be a little bit more quick through the
Yep.
sets.
Yeah, it's funny. Not entirely dissimilar from what you're doing. It's 10 down to 1 of a back squat,
Okay.
and the load I'm going to do is 185. Then a ring row, and
Ooh, I like it.
guidance for the ring row is make it as difficult as possible. So that's feet on a box or whatever. And when the rings touch your chest, pause for at least a 1/1000. The third movement, so the back squat, ring row. The third movement is your friend of mine, the burpee. And then I think I got it back. I think it's burpees and ring rows. But hey, whatever. And then, so those all go 10 down to 1. But then each round stays consistent. After that, you just do a 12-second L sit, and that comes out eventually to accumulating 120 seconds in the L sit.
Nice.
But that 12 seconds stays consistent at the end of each
There's
round.
well, that's a good one. There's 2 integrity tests written within that workout, Pat. The first is that 1/1000 at the top of the ring row.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a quick 1/1000 by the
Right.
end of it. If I was a betting man, and then second, that 12-second L sit. I mean, if you're just counting those off in the old noggin, I suspect that 12 seconds might not be accurate to your watch. So,
And hey,
bring a timer.
even the term L sit is loose. Is it
That's
kind
right,
of
yeah,
a knee
totally.
tuck kind of looking thing? It's going to
We're
be
talking
something.
Toes pointed, toes flexed. What are we talking here?
Right.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any, gymnastics coaches knocking on my door recruiting me after the workout, but it's going to do the trick.
I love it.
So today's show is once again community generated. And this is from somebody, I'm thinking this came in on the VNR Instagram account from Erica. And here's what she says. The first paragraph is not about her question. It's just kind words about us. And that's why I'm going to read it before I read the question.
Yeah. Fluff us up, Pat. Make us feel
Exactly.
good about it. Yeah.
She says, firstly, may I say that I adore this podcast? You may, Erica.
Absolutely.
You both make me laugh. Seems like Pat's an amazing person. Boz is not. No. Okay, says both are amazing people. Love the good outlook on life expressing through these podcasts. Listen on my way to the gym. It's an early morning class, and so it motivates me. Very cool. Okay. I'm currently working on my strict handstand push-ups. My coach was kind enough to give me a program. It got me wondering about how strict gymnastics movements differ from strict movements with a barbell. For example, I cannot strict press my own body weight, but I can, if I can't do it, can I do a strict handstand push-up? I later read that if you can strict press, let's say, between 50 and 65% of your body weight, then you should have the strength necessary for a strict handstand push-up. Does this sound true? Is it the range of motion is less with the gymnastics movement than the barbell? Does this apply to other movements, for example, bench press versus just doing regular push-ups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And does working on both at the same time help progress or hinder progress?
Oh, great question. This is a fun one because I think that there's some easy answers in there, but there's also some nuance to discuss a little bit as well. And I like questions like this because I think the intent is really admirable. People are trying to figure out, okay, how do I accelerate my training? How do I, make the most of my time to try to get to the goal that I'm after? In this case, the strict handstand push-up. And so I think the intent behind it's really cool. I think if you take that intent to its extreme, people want to have an answer that is going to be correct 100% of the time in terms of, if I only did X, will it always translate to Y? And that answer is, unfortunately, no, it won't. In the Venn diagram that overlaps a lot of these different movements that she mentioned, strict press versus handstand push-up, push-up versus bench press, etc. You can think of a bunch of others. In the Venn diagram that starts to overlap those, it's like, yeah, you're going to see a ton of correlation there. But make no mistake, there's no guarantees because there are a lot more factors than what can initially appear when you just start comparing the weight that you might need to lift versus the weight that you are lifting when you're looking at your own person. So I'll leave it there for now. But yeah, I think there's some kind of quick answers to this, but there's also quite a little bit of nuance there too.
And I think the short answer for her question is that I don't know if the percentage is exactly what she said, but quite true, yes. I mean, for you to do a strict handstand push-up for most human beings, that does not require that you have a strict body weight shoulder press.
Absolutely.
Yep. For sure. And as it most likely only requires a fraction of that, and again, is it 50 to 65%? I'm not sure, but that doesn't sound wild and crazy, as a matter of fact, as a general percentage thrown out there. And yes, that same school of thought does translate to other movements. She mentioned the push-up and the bench press. So for example, if I weigh 185, using the bench press and the push-up as an analog, I might drop down to the floor right now and be able to give you like 30 good push-ups. I can't slide under 185 pounds and give you 30 unbroken body weight bench press of 185. Not even remotely
Pat,
close.
I believe in you.
I mean, not even remotely close. Like they are. It's funny. Both very similar pressing, and while you might say something with regards to the handstand push-up, since, your head hits the ground, we're not talking parallettes here, like we can get into like, you're not getting the same range of motion. She mentioned that. You are getting the same range of motion in the push-up, but it's still wildly different. And in preparation for this question, I figured I'd reach out to one of the best in the business. So I hit up Dan Bailey, and I was like, some of the strongest shoulders in the game in pressing. I was like, Dan, do you know? I said, can you, if you did strict handstand push-ups to failure and strict shoulder press to failure, I said, is it safe to say that your strict handstand push-ups number would be much greater? And he gave like the laughing emoji. He's like, dude, it wouldn't even be close. He's like, I could do so many more strict handstand push-ups. It would be laughable compared to the low number of strict shoulder press. So I think she's right on point with her train of thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's dig into that a little bit more as far as the specifics. People love to kind of live and die by percentages because they sound like they bring some level of specificity into it. But when you really start breaking it down, each person's body type and the way that they are carrying muscle mass, carrying fat distribution, the length of their limbs, all of these variables are going to make a pretty profound impact on what that actual percentage might be as far as strict press to handstand push-up in this case, So let's take an athlete like Dan Bailey, old Cannonball Delts Bailey. I mean, he is a specimen, super strong athlete. He's very, very good, famously, at his handstand push-ups, and no slouch to any other barbell work either. But why? Why would he be so much more inclined to get reps on handstand push-ups than a bodyweight shoulder press? Well, let's look at the range of motion that he is traveling, just for starters, to touch his head to the floor and then extend his arms overhead. We're talking just that distance alone from the top of his head to the top of his clavicle in difference of range of motion. So right there, you have a much more compromised position when
Right.
we're talking about how to start that movement with the strict shoulder press. So right there, right out the gate, we have a big difference. That's going to be exacerbated depending on the length of his arms and specifically how far away the pit of his elbow is from his head when his arms are extended overhead, because that means, again, a more aggressive range of motion is required if he's got longer arms. Dan doesn't have very long arms, so again, advantage Bailey in the handstand push-up, right? So we got range of motion as a big one. Second is, again, the way that Dan's muscle mass is distributed. I mean, he has some pretty stout upper body muscularity going on there, no question. Basically anything above the head when he's in that handstand push-up is not really being elevated by his pressing mechanic, meaning you could, in a real kind of crude way, take the weight of both of his arms and just eliminate it from the equation, roughly speaking. And now you've got what would be closer to the true weight that he's actually lifting with every handstand push-up. And so for a guy like Dan Bailey, I don't know what each one of his arms weighs, but it's not going to be insignificant.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So all of these things are going to come into play. You might take an athlete on the other end of that who, they have more mass in their lower body as compared to their upper body. It's a bigger ratio. And speaking kind of generally, you're going to find that more women, if you look at the bell curve or the way that most women are going to be built, they're going to have more weight in their lower body than their upper body. Not all, but many. That's going to make that press a little bit more demanding, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the specificity of the number, it's kind of fun to play around with it, but it's going to be different from person to person. But what you can say with certainty is that yes, absolutely, the press at body weight is going to be a more demanding movement than a strict handstand push-up. So I guess what it boils down to in my mind is that some of these other ways of developing strength via barbells and dumbbells and that sort of thing, they can really only serve as a proxy for these other things that you want to develop. So if you want to develop a strict ring dip or a muscle up, etc., these barbell movements can be great because the granularity that they allow for loading can help you progress. You're not stuck at a fixed weight. And so that can be adjusted down or up, and both have their advantages, right, in the developmental process. And so that's the huge advantage right there. Don't get lost in like, well, I have to get X, and that means I'm going to have this skill that I've been working on. No, treat it as a developmental tool that it's meant to be, and just focus on getting it better, and know that there will be some overlap, but you're going to have to keep working that base skill as well.
It's a great point about weight training, right? That one of the easiest or most advantageous parts of that is just so easy to scale and modify. It's really difficult to scale and modify your body weight or some gymnastics movements without a little bit more knowledge and understanding or sophisticated skills, whereas you just strip off a little bit of weight on the barbell and the shoulder press becomes easier. This is not a technical exercise science term, but comparing the strict handstand push-up to the shoulder press, to some degree, for lack of a better way to say it, what makes the strict handstand push-up easier is you are kind of removing the most challenging part of the movement, the quote-unquote sticky point. It's like when you crack those elbows well below 90 degrees, the barbell's right, you got to get it out of the hole, so to speak, off your shoulders. Once you get the barbell above your head, this, the finishing portion, so to speak, it's like if most people are doing a squat and they get out of the hole and they finally get themselves above parallel, your chances of finishing the squat are significantly better once you get through that sticky point. And with regards to, every shoulder press passes below sticky point, the most challenging portion of that range of motion every single solid time. And rep after rep, you're more fatigued from the previous rep, whereas with the strict handstand push-up, that pesky neighborhood is removed, largely speaking, and so that is going to be a tremendous advantage to the athlete as well. You mentioned barbell work, and I guess a simple answer to, in my opinion anyway, to Erica's question of, hey, I want to get better at these strict handstand push-ups, should I just focus on these, or is there a benefit to me working in the barbell as well? Short answer is yes. It's been my personal experience working with a lot of people, over the years, that variance is your friend. And as we've said plenty of times, variance doesn't mean random nonsense, but variance means you've got so many different ways to, if your goal is a strict handstand push-up, to try to develop that pressing strength, to develop that same musculature, to develop that same body awareness, and attacking it from multiple angles in an intelligent manner. I have seen nothing but success from people over and over and over again, whether it's implements, calisthenics versus barbells, different rep schemes, using bands, not using bands, static holds, working some negatives. I would say, again, in a deliberate and intentional fashion, the more the merrier. I wouldn't just feel like, well, I want to get better at handstand push-up, so I'm just going to keep working the handstand push-up at the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah, I agree. I think that variance is a huge asset. The one caveat I would put to that is that if you want to develop a skill, you have to see that skill with some degree of regularity for it to really kind of take shape. And so if your goal ultimately is a strict handstand push-up, then yeah, absolutely work the barbell pressing, work some dumbbell pressing, work these different variations of handstand push-ups from a pike position, et cetera, et cetera. These are all amazing exercises. But at the end of the day, sooner or later, and hopefully sooner, you're going to have to start kicking up into that handstand position and playing with that position. Maybe from a limited range of motion, maybe just holding in the beginning.
Yep. Piked off a box.
Exactly. But with some degree of regularity, you're going to have to come back to that skill that you're targeting so that it all starts to come together. So yeah, the variance is a huge asset, but make sure that it is focused at least some of the time on the skill that you're actually looking to develop. And the other thing I'll add to that you mentioned, that actually kind of jogged some thinking there too, difference between the handstand push-up and the press, getting back to it. You mentioned that sticking point, yeah, and just how much easier it is once you get that mechanical advantage of getting past the head. Well, another mechanical advantage when you look at the strict press versus the handstand push-up is the starting position. In the strict press, you're starting with no eccentric contraction to help you rebound out of that bottom position. Whereas in the handstand push-up, the opposite is true. You're starting from effectively the top, quote unquote, the lockout position. You have some ability on the way down to build up that eccentric, kind of elasticity within the muscles that can help with the rebound. Much like the deadlift. A lot of times when you have that weight that's just staring at you on the ground, the first rep is the hardest because there is no buildup of eccentric tension to help you move the load. But once you get that bar to the waist, it's not uncommon for people to feel like, okay, if I can get one, I can get two or three, because now I have the negative to assist where the muscle gets stretched, there's all this built up tension, and then I can try to reverse that in addition to, just moving the bar on its own.
I would also say, without context, like eccentric loading can get potentially a bad rap, right? Because somebody might just immediately associate that with rhabdo, stay away from it, never do it. And that's an oversimplification, right? So what I would encourage people to do is, do your own research, poke into that. But I'm here to tell you that properly used with the amount of reps and volume and whatnot, eccentric movement and building strength through the eccentric phase is a wonderful way to do it as well. So now, obviously, be safe. Hopefully, I don't have to say that ridiculous caveat. But you could do something like, Erica, if this was appropriate for you, you had spotters, whatever it was, you could kick into a handstand with a slight deficit, whether it's parallel or just a slight deficit, to get deeper than you would in a regular strict handstand push where your head touches the ground. And even if you don't have the strength to drive out of that hole, you can do this controlled eccentric negative load for multiple reps on the way down. And that is going to be tremendously beneficial as well in the overall scheme of variance. There's a whole bunch of ways that you can attack this, and yes, the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Eccentrics are great. Don't let anybody tell you differently. The context is the really important part. And if you're confused about how to use eccentrics in your training, it's really simple. Think about it the same way you would a heavy barbell strength application. So I'm thinking less than 10 reps probably, sweet spot's probably around 5, and I'm probably looking at about 5 to 7 sets. And that's it. It shouldn't be something that you're experiencing for a ton of intensity with a lot of other things. You're not looking for 1,000 reps in a session. It should be low reps, high tension, much like you would for a heavy deadlifting session or something like that. If you stick to those kind of rules with eccentrics, they can be really, really beneficial to add in, especially with gymnastics movements where, like you said earlier, it can be a little harder to scale those. You either have to have a lot of experience or a lot of creativity to come up with a way to put the leverage into your advantage. So an eccentric can be an easy way to do it. And one of my favorite ways to approach them too is, you got your basic just lowering under control, trying to resist the gravity of the movement. That's an easy way to do it. One way that you can take that even just a little bit further is just try to stop at different points along the way. So maybe it's at the halfway point and then right before your head touches the ground. Just see if you can halt that motion for a second or two. And that's a great way to start to progress that, because the next natural progression to that is, okay, if I can stop the movement, maybe I can start to reverse the movement. And now you're like right there knocking on the door.
Okay, so I think maybe one of the final things that I have on this is how to, I guess here's what I'm trying to say, is sometimes CrossFitters know they need to work on something and don't allow themselves to work on it during the actual workout, because if it's something that they're not quite good at, it's going to take more time than they want it to take. The clock continues to run. I watch my quote-unquote position plummet down the leaderboard. Now this workout was a failure. So what I would say is, there are some people that are like on the cusp of double unders, hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss, and they don't want to put them in a workout because it's going to just grenade round 2 and it's going to go terrible. But like, okay, if there's 50 double unders in the workout, maybe you're going to give yourself 1 minute and you look at the clock during round 2, and for a minute you get as many attempts as you can. And starting to do something like that, I don't know what it is between the years, but I feel like that catapults progress. And there was somebody who was in my community who was like, you know what, pretty darn good on the rower, pretty darn good on the bike, I suck at running. What should I do? Well, you should run more. And so like if workouts come out that rowing was programmed or the bike was programmed, it was probably programmed as a bike or a rower for a reason. However, if we take a step back and we take a wrap off and you swapped out that bike or run for a row of equal distance because that's what you need to work on, you're going to be just fine. Like the intended stimulus is going to be just fine in the grand scheme of things, and that's where you need to be as an athlete.
I was going to say, to your point, it might be even better because for you, that's
for their long-term development. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, look, handstand push-ups, especially strict, are not something that come up regularly in workouts. Compared to a lot of other things. But you might see push press or strict press or push jerks or whatever, and it's probably all there for a reason. But if this is a goal that you have and it's something that you want to work on and get better at, like you said, you need to touch it regularly. Do your stuff on the side. You get your side hustle going on to get your strict handstand push-ups and all that. But you're going to be okay if a workout's supposed to have it's 21:59, it's got push press in it, and you talk to the coach or you modify it yourself in some sort of a way, piked off a box, some use of a band, broken up reps, whatever it is, it becomes a strict handstand push-up workout for you. And yes, because it was going to be a push press, and now it's a strict handstand push-up, it's going to take you much longer than the workout probably would have. But that's where you need to be. Like, it's your strength building session with other movements thrown in for the strict handstand push-ups. And that's not every workout every day, but you can probably get these more frequent touches. And so I would just say, don't let that the clock rules everything mentality disrupt what could be opportunities for you to advance.
Could not agree more. And I think that that's another win for Eccentrics, is that you can toss a couple sets in after you're warmed up, but before like the main course of your workout, so to speak. And it's not going to take too much out of you. So there's some easy practice wins that you can get there. And then something that you brought up as far as overlap of things that seemingly kind of go together. You mentioned biking and rowing. You'd think that, okay, the cardiovascular elements of that should just immediately transfer to my running. And while certainly some of the raw materials that are necessary for all three of those activities will overlap, there will be some things that don't. And that, I think, is something that we've been kind of circling around with this conversation, is that the basic statement is that different movements are going to require different coordinations. It's that simple. And so even if the raw materials are close from these different movements, and there is a lot of overlap, the coordination to do this specific task is going to be something that needs to be experienced and again, with regularity, if you ever want to get really good at that thing. So you can think about it like, yeah, I have the horsepower, but can I channel that horsepower specifically into this task? Well, that's why I have to practice that thing, is so that the raw goods can get channeled into it. And that's really important. And that's, again, if we go back to kind of CrossFit theory and we talk about what it means to be fit from a holistic point of view, it's not just a one trick, one application type of athlete. Coordination is very important for that reason. And that's something that, again, I think suggests that taking a few different approaches is going to be good, because not only are you going to practice that skill that you're looking at specifically, but you're going to be well coordinated generally because you've done all of these kind of ancillary pressing style movements as well. So you'll be good not just at handstand push-ups, but with the barbell, with the dumbbell, with the kettlebell, etc.
Anything else?
No, I guess maybe just a reminder that people love to throw out these different baselines for skills, and you see this happen all the time. It looks great on Instagram, and it's like, well, if you can press 65% of your body, blah blah blah. But those baselines, they don't guarantee anything. They can be a pretty good proxy. They can suggest that you're probably pretty close, but don't let the mentality of, okay, if I can just get 65% of my body weight on the barbell, I'm going to be good to go. Don't let that fool you into thinking it's a guarantee. And on the other hand, don't get discouraged if for whatever reason you have a really good press. Let's say you've got a great press. You got a 70% body weight press and you're comfortable doing that for reps, but you just can't quite put the handstand push-ups together yet. Don't worry about that either, because sometimes people take too much of these percentages or these kind of axioms that they see online, and they think that there's something wrong with them if they have that, but they can't do the other thing associated with it, and that's not always the case either. So don't get discouraged. Keep working towards this goal from a kind of multifaceted way, and I think that the consistency of doing it is going to be what leads you there in the end. So just keep at it.
Without question. And just to shout out, right? Like we talk about this stuff all the time. It can be easy to get kind of blasé about it. But a strict handstand push-up is a really legit accomplishment. So if you're like working towards getting your first strict handstand push-up, or then once you get it, linking several together, like, you're,
it's great.
You're in an elite category of people that can just kick upside down against a wall and start pressing your body weight upside down. Like that's pretty cool. So keep on the path, Erica, for sure.
Yeah, especially, you think about, it is kind of funny to pull out of the CrossFit bubble from time to time and just look around and ask yourself, how many adults, let's say past the age of 25, even have the capacity to get upside down, never mind attempt to try to press their body weight back up from that bottom of the handstand push-up, So don't lose sight of the fact that you're working on something really hard. Progress is likely going to be slow. That's the name of the game. Don't get discouraged by that and just keep chipping away.
Because I'm a professional, I forgot to say this at the top of the show, so I'll say it right now. We appreciate you, everybody. And, to help support the old program, you can go to verynotrandom.com. Check out all the different cycles we offer. One of them is for your strict handstand push-up on top of all kinds of other body weight movements, barbell cycles, running. We got you covered. So check that out. A lot of cool stuff, and you can just upload right to the btwb app and you'll have it in your training day. If you own a gym, any sort of fitness facility in the world, you got to do all the non-sexy stuff, right? Member billing, gym management, got to track the fitness of your athletes, all that kind of stuff. btwb has an all-in-one to handle that for gym owners. Just go to btwb.com and check that out. This was obviously content from the community. As I say at the end of all these shows, all of you out there, you drive the show. So find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel. Give your thoughts. Is there a super secret tip that we didn't realize can really help Erica get to the strict handstand push-up? Post that in the comments. I'd love to see it also. What worked for you? If you've got an idea for a topic or an upcoming show, post it there. Or you can go to Instagram, the Very Not Random account. You can leave a comment just publicly under any post that we do, or you can send a direct message to be more anonymous on the Very Not Random Instagram account, and we'll see it there as well. So we appreciate you, everybody. For Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we'll see you next time.